A pioneer farmer cemetery in eastern Washington is a fascinating and deeply historical place, reflecting the resilience, hardships, and values of the early settlers who braved the harsh landscape to carve out a living. These cemeteries often have unique characteristics that set them apart from more modern burial sites. The culture of a pioneer farmer cemetery is one of endurance, community, and simplicity. The people buried there were often homesteaders who arrived in the late 1800s or early 1900s, seeking opportunity in the arid and challenging environment of eastern Washington. These cemeteries are a testament to their struggles and triumphs. Many of these cemeteries were family plots or small community graveyards established by settlers who had limited access to formal burial grounds. They reflect a deeply practical mindset. Land was scarce and valuable, so graves were often placed on hillsides or in rocky areas. Inscriptions on gravestones frequently reference faith, perseverance, and the hope of reuniting in the afterlife, emphasizing the strong religious beliefs of these farming communities. These cemeteries are often isolated, set on wind-swept prairies or nestled among rolling hills. The landscape can be stark, with dry grass, sagebrush, and a few hardy trees providing sparse shade. The remoteness adds to their haunting beauty, as many have been long abandoned or rarely visited except by historians, descendants, or the occasional curious traveler. Many gravestones were homemade or created by local stonemasons using whatever materials were available: wood, fieldstone, or even metal. Over time, weathering from wind, rain, and the extreme temperatures of eastern Washington has worn down some inscriptions, sometimes leaving only faint traces of names and dates. Some wooden markers have long since rotted away, leaving only small depressions in the earth to indicate a burial site. Not all graves were formally marked due to financial constraints or a lack of materials. Instead, settlers sometimes used simple piles of rocks, wooden crosses, or even just a natural landscape to denote burial sites. It is not uncommon to find depressions in the earth or scattered stones hinting at forgotten graves. Some family plots were enclosed with iron fences, wooden pickets, or even barbed wire to keep livestock from disturbing the graves. In some cases, these fences have collapsed or rusted away, leaving only remnants of their original purpose. A heartbreaking reality of pioneer life was the high infant and child mortality rate. Many small, closely grouped graves belong to children who succumbed to disease, harsh winters, or accidents. Sometimes these graves are adorned with the lamb carvings or other symbolic markers indicating their young age. Some grave sites have relics left by families, like rusted old farm tools, toys, or even old wagon wheels, serving as a tribute to the life and labor of the deceased. These objects, though weathered by time, add an eerie and deeply personal touch to the cemetery. Many of these cemeteries are surrounded by local stories passed down through generations. Some tell of settlers who perished in tragic accidents, violent conflicts, or devastating illnesses. Ghost stories are also abound, with some claiming to hear whispers in the wind or see flickering lights among the graves. Today, many pioneer cemeteries are at the risk of being lost to time. Some are maintained by historical societies, while others have been left to nature. Those that remain offer a glimpse into the lives of the people who built the agricultural backbone of eastern Washington. Visiting one of these cemeteries is like stepping into the past. Each grave tells a story of hardship, perseverance, and the unwavering hope of those who came before. These pioneer farmer cemeteries in eastern Washington are profoundly important because they serve as historical, cultural, and emotional touchstones that connect the present to the past. These burial grounds are not just places of rest for early settlers. They are powerful reminders of the hardships, values, and resilience of the people who shaped the region. These cemeteries are some of the last tangible connections to the homesteaders and farmers who transformed the rugged eastern Washington landscape into productive farmland. Many settlers left behind few records, so these cemeteries serve as one of the only enduring pieces of evidence of their lives and struggles. For descendants of pioneer families, these cemeteries offer an irreplaceable link to their ancestors. In an era before detailed government records, gravestones provide crucial information like names, dates, and family connections, which help give insight into a person's life. The graves in these cemeteries tell a stark story of the challenges faced by early settlers. The high number of infant and child burials speak to the harsh living conditions, disease outbreaks, and lack of medical care. The presence of family plots suggests the deep bonds within these farming communities, as well as the isolation that made it necessary to bury loved ones on private land. Many of these cemeteries highlight the strong faith of the settlers, with gravestones engraved with Bible verses, prayers, and religious symbols. These inscriptions reflect the values of the community and the deep reliance on faith during times of hardship. The cemeteries also illustrate the diversity of early settlers, as different ethnic and religious groups sometimes had their own burial traditions. Unlike modern cemeteries with standardized markers, pioneer farmer cemeteries often feature handmade gravestones, folk art, and unique engravings. These markers, crafted from local stone, wood, or even metal, tell a story of resourcefulness and personal devotion. Over time, weathering has given these sites a haunting beauty that could not be replicated anywhere else. For many of these settlers, the land was everything. It provided their livelihood, their home, and ultimately their final resting place. Unlike modern cemeteries that feel separate from daily life, pioneer cemeteries are deeply tied to the land itself, often placed on the same fields the deceased once plowed and worked. Preserving these cemeteries is about more than just maintaining old gravestones. It is about honoring the sacrifices of those who built the foundations of eastern Washington's farming communities. These sites offer invaluable lessons in history, resilience, and the enduring human spirit. By protecting them, we ensure that future generations can continue to learn and also continue to connect with the past.